Is 17:30. I'm sorry, 5:30 PM. It is 17:30 for me. And we will start with the workshop. We do not have a quorum at the moment, but we don't need one for the workshop. So as far as the workshop meeting, discuss regarding updates. These are updates that we're going to discuss. Appendix C, zoning Alpine City Code of Ordinances. Proposed updates include amendments to the general public zoning, land use, acceptable uses, unacceptable uses, minimum standards, processes, permits, general zoning issues, and the city. And Megan Antrim is present.
Actually, I'm gonna have Jessica start off with her presentation. At the city council workshop, there was the confusion with the terminology. And Jessica was gracious enough to take some time, because I know we all call mobile homes, manufactured homes, there is very specifics to it. Gio, if you could pull up the packet so it's visible to our audience online.
Okay.
I'm gonna let Jessica walk through that, because that was part of the concern that came out of the last workshop. That way she can go through and give a better understanding of the different terminology for the different structures, and did provide sample pictures as well.
Okay.
And we'll kind of go from there.
And then, yeah, I have some questions, but what we'll do is let Jessica do your presentation and then we'll ask both of y'all questions, right? Okay.
Do you want me to stand up here or do you want me here? What do you guys
You're
want?
probably fine there. if
You're fine
comfortable.
there as long as the camera can see you.
Well, I don't know if I will.
It can eclipse you.
Okay,
You look good.
so, I mainly wanted to open up, and discuss some of the issues with definitions that we were having. Because we were using words that don't actually mean what they mean as far as building goes. And so, I did supply a PowerPoint presentation that hopefully you guys were able to look at it to understand a little bit what the direction that we're trying to go and why we're going in that direction. And why we would like to see the changes. And then, I don't know, are you able to pull that up?
Are you on the presentation?
I don't know if, I think Megan had said maybe putting it online.
Yes, if we could just pull up the packet and then just do the screen by screen.
It's right behind page 59 in our packet. I think it's this right.
Yeah,
That way it's also visible.
Yeah, just, I mean, I can just go, but I mean, we can go quickly through it. It's not that complicated. I don't think. Well, I work with it every day, so it's not complicated to me because I live, breathe and eat building services. So,
I know we have a couple council members who watch this
Yeah.
afterwards, so I want them to
This one
know.
right here, right?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
And mainly the
15.
first page is talking about why it's important to our department as building services, because we're the front lines when people come to our department and they want to know. They want to buy a piece of property, they've bought in a piece of property, they've inherited a piece of property, they're interested in a piece of property, they want to build, they want to renew, they want to renovate, whatever it is that they want to do. We're the first people they're gonna come and talk to about getting permits and what they're interested in. So, it's really important. Are you able to find that? I can.
No, I
Page
can't.
one.
Yeah.
It's right behind 59.
Okay, it's not this page here.
No, that page over there.
Thank you for letting me know. Go ahead.
That's one of the main reasons is because we just deal with the people that are dealing with the zoning issues that we already have. We all know that we have issues with zoning. And the changes, as far as, the direction we're gonna go with the comprehensive plan and things like that. It's important that we understand the definitions of what we're trying to visualize from our department. And also what you guys decide and what city council decides, is up to you guys. But it is the issues that we have on a day-to-day basis, so we just wanted to share them with you. We as in me, because I'm only me now, so. But before there was a we,
There was a we,
but now it's me.
but there is an international code.
There is, so the International Property Maintenance Code and the International Zoning Code is what I've been using mainly for. The updated definitions, because the International Property Maintenance Code book is the book that we've adopted for the city, so any of the definitions that were in our ordinance that were not correct have been corrected with the definitions directly out of this book. That's where we've gotten those definitions. And then the International Zoning Code has not been adopted, but these are the definitions that we used. I'm working on the sign ordinance, and that's where all the sign information goes into play. So if you ever want to see these books, they're in our office, you're more than welcome to come and look at them. And so that's what I've been working off of. It's just that it's not a biased opinion. It's just what has been like given to me as far as code goes.
A lot of cities use them. apparently.
Yes, and so we have the 2021 edition is what we work off of. And so obviously, we're talking about future growth in Alpine. What we see is a deficit, like things that we are dealing with on a daily basis as far as like things like that. And so this is kind of like the solutions behind what we think might help the city, not necessarily what you guys decide on, it's just an idea. The clarification of mobile homes is a big one because we use mobile home a lot in our dialogue about what a mobile home is. What's the next slide? And it's actually mobile homes are no longer acceptable housing or a word that should be used in our ordinance. So with that being said, it gives you the reason why, they no longer comply with HUD housing. And that was anything prior to 1976 is not considered safe, by HUD standards. And so when we drive by and you're like, oh, that's a mobile home. If it's newer than a 1976, it's actually a manufactured home. And so a lot of people use the word mobile home, it's like tomato, tomato, but really in the building world, it's not. So when we're using that word, I want to make sure you guys understand a mobile home is considered a non-conforming structure that does not meet the code requirements anymore. Okay. And then also to go with that, yes, sir.
So our ordinance currently, there you go, R4, we gotta change the name.
Exactly. That's where that came up. Like, we need to change R4 name because we're using it as a mobile home district, which is wrong because we can't put mobile homes there anymore. And not only that, but with the ideas behind affordable housing and the things that we kind of want to implement in there. And if you look at R4, it's the only place in our ordinance that offers other types of housing with special use, conditional use permits. Like you could do the straw bale housing, you could do Connex container housing, rammed earth housing. Like if you're gonna do something that's different, it's only gonna be allowable in the R4. And so that's why we were thinking more in the direction of mixed residential, because it's a mixed idea of housing concepts.
I was gonna say, I like that title better than trying to define like modular and.
Or you
all
could
the
put
other stuff
manufactured
that-
home district, but really, it really limits what you can do with that space. And that's kind of like where the idea was like, let's not focus on just manufactured housing. Let's focus on the uniqueness of that zone, because there's a lot of cool things you can do with the R4. And I don't want people to be like, oh, I can only put a mobile home there. I can only put a manufactured home there. So that's kind of why we kind of steered away from changing it from mobile home district to manufactured.
Yeah, I
home
like it.
district.
It gives you.
And so if you read it into our ordinance, you'll notice that R4 is the only place where there's quote unquote new concept housing. And with that being said, that is the one place that we were talking about putting small footprint homes. So it'd be like the cottage style or casita style housing, it'd be put into the R4. That was where we thought would be the most ideal, because for housing costs, it's cost about the same per square footage to build a small house as it would to put a manufactured home there. And so it wouldn't affect the integrity of the houses around it. You don't want to put a small footprint house next to an R1 because it's going to affect the value of the house, the neighborhood. It's like keeping the neighborhood's value intact.
Yeah, I have some questions for you after the
Yes.
after the talk.
So the next pictures are just examples of mobile homes. I took them off the internet. And so you can kind of get an idea when you're driving around town, the age look of what you're looking at, of what we kind of, you can kind of drive down the road and you can be like, oh, that's an older mobile home. So it probably is a mobile home or very close to that age group.
We have a few.
We have a lot, actually. Did you have a question in this section?
No, I just like that little. That makes it sound.
Okay. So manufactured homes is the new word for mobile home. So anything that's newer than 1976 is considered a manufactured home. And those will continue to be allowed in the R4. We're not removing that. We're still going to allow people to get a newer mobile home, a manufactured home placed in the R4. We're not planning on changing that at all. And we don't want to change that because it's a quick way for people to get a house. It's an affordable way to get a house with material costs. And I think that it should still be something that's allowable in the area.
And they have to meet HUD requirements.
Yes, so it has to be newer than 1976. So if somebody had a 1977 and they could prove it, they could still move it inside city limits. They could still use that house. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold and a cough.
As long as it's R4.
I know.
Right.
Give it a minute, I'll tell you, you'll know. So
As long as it's R4.
it's as long as R4, it's the only place you put manufactured. Excuse me,
Don't die on us.
hmm?
Don't die on us. Get your presentation out.
No.
first.
It's a lot of spit. Okay. Mobile homes and manufactured homes and modular homes are all different types. They're all prefabricated, so. They're put together in a warehouse and they're brought out. So a manufactured home comes on wheels and they bring it in and they take the wheels off and they put them down just like a mobile home would have been done. But the manufactured home is just a newer model that meets HUD standards,
And we call it manufactured or modular.
manufactured.
Okay, so the manufactured ones. that-
Manufactured is the new mobile home.
On the truck.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah, we're gonna get to that one.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and it meets, so manufactured homes meet HUD standards. And they will continue to be allowable in the R4. Okay, so down at the bottom, it's highlighted, manufactured equals the new type of mobile home, okay? And then there's some pictures of what manufactured homes look
Now you
like.
got some pictures. Okay.
Hmm.
And they're tied into the city water and sewage and all the other stuff, right?
Yeah, nothing changes as far as how they're installed. But you can see on that main picture, the wheels are underneath of it. So they're gonna put skirting around that house. And it's considered a manufactured house. So the next page is what is a modular home? So a modular home meets all the standards of our code for an R1 house. So it's considered a house, it's considered a single family residential home. They typically come in different sections and they get bolted together on a foundation and they're not movable. So they are not even in the classification of what we would close our eyes and consider a mobile home. They're considered a house, they're considered a residential house, and a lot of them were originally put in Toronto Creek Estates. The first few houses that were put in over there were modular,
Where?
Toronto Creek Estates.
Oh,
A lot of them were modular, a lot of them going down Cherry and Orange Street. Those single family houses, a lot of those are modular, and one of the houses on the corner over by McDonald's is a modular house. You can't tell the difference.
And they all have to meet the footprint.
They're stamped and licensed as a modular home, so they have to meet the square footage requirements of a regular residential house, but they're an R1, so they're considered a single family residential home. They can go in an R1
And they're permanent.
and they're permanent, yeah. So there's some pictures of what. So the next slide is just shows you what's in our ordinance and the way that it's listed under R1. And so the specifications have to be met. They have a foundation, they have to meet certain requirements. They're completely separate than a manufactured home. So when we're saying manufactured, we're thinking mobile home. When we're saying modular, you're thinking of a house, like a single family, okay? And there's some pictures of what a modular home looks like on the next slide. So when they're complete, you can't tell, there's no skirting, the front of the house goes all the way to the ground. You can't tell the difference. Do you have any questions on modular homes?
No, I think that's a great option.
Yeah, a lot of people do that out here because it's, again, an easy way to get a house here that's already ready. And a lot of people have done them out here.
says a certified seal.
Yes.
Where is that seal?
So when they send us our plans, it can't come as a manufactured home because a lot of companies do both. They'll do manufactured and modular homes. So it has to be stamped as and licensed as a modular home
Oh,
By the company.
by the company.
Okay, where's it? Is that a stamp on the house?
No, on the plans, it's.
On the plans?
Mhm, on the
Okay.
plans.
I think it's on one of the beams too.
And I think there probably is some kind of licensing thing.
I have a modular home, and
Yeah.
there's no stamp.
Um,
There may be on the plans, I'm
Yeah.
sure, I'm sure there are. But it's like the old mobile homes have or new mobile homes have a stamp with a serial number.
yeah,
I haven't been able to ever discover that on a modular.
and a lot of times manufactured homes have that because they're movable.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
These
true.
these won't be moved once
Yeah.
Nope, I hope not.
on the paper plan.
They're not meant to be. So the next slide is about casitas. So this concept got brought up. We first went with the word cottages, then we went to casitas because we don't want you guys to think that we're talking about tiny houses, which we'll get into later. But tiny houses are what the people are building on trailers and they're on wheels. Those are considered RVs by code. casitas or cottages would be considered a small house, like a single family residential. On the ground with a foundation. Like what you'd think of if you had a house and then you had a casita in your backyard. The same concept, but it'd have to be at least 500 square feet or more. The reason why we thought this would be a great way to allow people in Alpine to be homeowners at an affordable price because of the fact that there's just not affordable living in Alpine. There's a lot of places that people move into town and they're like, even with a manufactured home, you have to have 850 square feet. And some people are like, I don't need that. I don't need 850 square feet. And, or I don't want to live in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And we've got a lot of people that are out here, whether they're government workers or they're college students, or they come out here because they love where we are and they want to live close to Big Bend National Park, or they're coming to retire, or they want to, there's so many reasons why somebody would want to build a little house out here. And it's not just in one age group. There's a lady that called me the other day that's an older woman and she's like, my kids all moved out of my house. I don't need this much space. I want a small house. I'm like, I'm sorry, but right now the minimum requirements are 1,000 square feet. She's like, I don't want 1,000 square feet. I was like, well, we're working on it, but I can't promise anything either. So it's like, I can't, like, the idea is there because a lot of people want it. And I've had more and more people come into our office that are like, can I buy this property and put an RV there? No. Can I buy this property and put a small house there? No. Can you buy this property and put a tiny house there? No. So it's like, this opens up at least one of those options for them, because they still won't be able to put an RV on a lot and they still won't be able to put a tiny house on a lot, but they can build a small house. And so that was where the concept behind what a small house option would look like, and it would only be allowable in R4.
That made
Would
me
you-
go measure my house, and my house isn't 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, well, a lot of some of these houses aren't because they were built previous to the
Yeah,
code.
mine is 1970.
Would you ever do it in like an R2 and above or anything like that? I mean, cause this is saying the minimum square footage is 750, right?
For the per
R2,
side on an R2
it's per side, so.
and an R2. So when you build
'Cause
a,
it- my house is an R2, but it's just a single family.
Oh,
yeah, you can. So the next picture helps you understand a little bit about how the zoning works. It's the nesting dolls.
Uh-huh.
I thought this was probably the most appropriate illustration. So the little guy's the single family and he's the most, you can't do as much with him. You can put him inside of all the other zones, but you can't put an R2 and an R1 and you can't put an R4 and an R1. R1 is like the highest as far as like,
Would you
Single
ever think of doing casitas though in R2 through R4? Cause they're really not that much different size, and I'm just thinking of opening up more room for people to have these affordable houses.
the
And like,
R2,
if you go through my neighborhood of R2s, like, it's not. If somebody were to build a home, a casita on a piece of property, it would look a lot better than a lot of the other houses, so it's not like you're gonna. Bring the neighborhood down by bringing a house that's a little bit smaller.
it is an option. I mean, you guys have more than anyway, the only reason I put it in R4 was because it's the most
Yeah, it makes
Diverse.
total
Most
sense, and
diverse, yeah.
I really like the idea of.
And I don't wanna affect the housing cost of like the depreciation value of the houses around, like.
Okay,
You can't do that in R4 so much because if you compare how much
Yeah.
a casita would cost to build.
mhm,
Compared to how much a manufactured home
Mhm.
would be to bring in and put on that property, it's about the same price per square
Okay.
footage. So if you look at an R2, 750 square foot per side, so you have to have 1,500 square feet total
your house had,
as
so
an R2. So if I was
So,
gonna build a
like,
duplex,
Matt's house would have to be that big. if
for
you-
a duplex.
But
So,
no, but a single family on an R2,
yeah, single family in R2 is 1,000 square foot minimum.
okay.
Mm.
But they
Unless
could
your
build
grandfather did.
two,
Yeah.
they could build 2 casitas, cause that's allowable.
They
through
could, and that's
R4.
totally up to you.
I
guys.
just was thinking of a way of, and that's also possibly income for somebody.
Mhm.
If they lived in one, had one, I don't know,
But
it's,
yeah.
I like small
I do
houses.
too. I love the idea of it, but at the same time, we want to protect the neighborhoods that have invested in land here, and I don't want to take away from a house that. And that just as like realtors, like when you go to like the Dallas, Fort Worth or something, and you're gonna buy a house. That you say, my price range is between $100,000 and $200,000. They're gonna take you to a neighborhood, but those houses are worth 100.
Yeah.
And like here, I mean, the rules don't.
Our
apply
neighborhood
as
would
much.
be, I think
Yeah.
I'll
But
find
if
an
we
R1.
put small houses inside that, it's like, putting a small house next to his house.
Well, you would know, you wouldn't do
I
it,
don't think he's gonna want
well,
that.
I'm not saying R1 though, I'm saying R2.
Yeah, I'm just saying like.
And I
but-
think if any way you could get anyone
Yeah.
to build something
And
on
I don't-
these lots,
yeah.
especially
And-
cleaning up these lots with abandoned.
And you guys can
Site.
decide and like,
I
you
just-
guys have just, when we actually go over.
Okay.
You guys can decide
If-
that to recommend that to city council. These are just what
Yeah.
from my perspective,
Yeah.
from a building side. That's
Okay.
all that I'm on.
Yeah,
But our
I'm able
four is
to
still
do-
flexible. Our four.
yeah, but R4 is so minimal. Compared to a lot of the city,
Lot of
like if
city.
you go
So you
through
want
our
to give it
map.
to more options to more people.
I want more people to be able to move here
Mhm.
and, or to buy houses and build a house and
Yep.
clean up what we have that looks abandoned and.
Mhm.
You know, make it affordable and,
Yeah.
and have the option of a second casita. If they can afford one and that's great income or for family to move in or.
Yep.
I don't know, I would wanna look into that as,
Yeah, and it doesn't take away, like, I think it was Darren that asked about, putting in, like a casita in your backyard. We're not removing that, option. Like, if you have a single family residential, if you own a house, you want to put a we call them accessory dwelling units, they're not called
Right, right,
casitas.
right.
If you wanted to put a place in your backyard, you can still do that. It's all based off impervious coverage and
Mhm.
setbacks. So as long as you have the space in your yard that has a fire barrier and you're not taking
And
up
the
too
city
much of your
permits.
property, you can build whatever you want.
yeah,
With the
As long as you
permits,
meet the requirements.
with the permits.
Yeah, of course.
yes,
That's yeah.
but if you wanted to buy a piece of property in, let's say R2.
And it's vacant.
On it that's vacant or full of just junk, the junkyards or whatever.
Like we bought net stuff.
Yes, you would actually be able to fit that size home on that lot. I don't think you'd fit a normal house, a required R2 size.
That'd be a triangle.
Yeah,
And there are variances too that you can do for that, like if
Yeah.
your lot size isn't big enough,
okay,
but I mean.
okay, so,
But is anything about the nesting dolls does all this make sense as far as how it works and how they go? And
I like it, except. Yes, the sizes would be the inverse, the size of the housing. But not the lot.
Hmm.
So the smallest houses could be an R4.
yeah, but you know, so that the way the nesting dolls work is that you can put you can put the dolls inside of each other. So you
Right.
can put an R1 inside of an R2, you can put an R2 inside of
Okay,
an R4.
gotcha. Yep.
But you cannot do the reverse of that. You
Reverse,
can't put an
right.
R4 inside of an R1.
Right.
we wanna protect especially R1's
Yeah.
value, cause those are,
But do you have any questions, anybody? Rick?
No, I just want to make a comment. One of the things you might want to know, Jessica, you already may know the answer to this. What's the square footage or acreage of R2s we have versus the acreage of R4s? Because I think the point that you all are working with is, we're trying to work density, what space do we have? How many of those are vacant? From a council standpoint, I think that'd be very helpful, and I think helpful for you.
That'd be very interesting to have that.
Because I'm looking at the zoning map right now. My sense is it's pretty close, just looking at it, I'm just looking at the colors. With the exception of on the south side where there's a huge lunk of R2 that has no streets, no nothing on it. Those that actually have streets and water, looks to be about the same amount of R2 and R4. But I just, as you think about it long term, probably when you take a look at that, that really would help that problem. This is when you think about density for the city.
Yeah.
mhm.
So any questions on any of the residential? So we're gonna go into like the commercial side of things, which is the issues that our department has with manufactured communities. So I'm not talking about an R4 with a trailer or a manufactured home on it. I'm talking about the big pieces of land that have multiple trailers on it, like Frontier Village is one of them, Reba's. Was it West End? West End, Lionsville was one of them, I don't think they exist anymore. The one that was behind the Maverick Inn that they vacated. Those are communities of manufactured housing.
Kind of the one down there all the way that we,
You looked at it, but
We
he
looked at it.
replatted it and made it into
Right.
commercial zone, but yes, same concept.
Yep.
That you have one parcel and there's multiple trailers on it.
Yep.
So the main issue that we have with the building services department is not one of them is in compliance with our ordinance. Not one of them exists that is right. So either they're not, none of them are registered the way that they should be, And they all have code enforcement issues. There's major sanitary issues. Like they've never been set up correctly based off of our ordinance, so they've never they're all non-conforming. So that none of them actually work. So there's no true proven one to say, this is a great example of, because there isn't one. And so I think that was the main thing, looking at them, that it's almost like a stomach ache for our department to have to deal with the manufactured housing community. And then when the Maverick was trying to, or the property behind the Maverick, when they were trying, that's when my eyes were open to how hard it is to deal with them, because on a code enforcement side of it, in Texas, the landowner is responsible for the property. So if you own the property and you rent to somebody and they put their manufactured home there, that's real property. It's real estate. So the landowner is responsible for it. So if they're a messy tenant, I still have to go after the landowner. I can't go after the person that owns the house that's on that. So it's constantly a back and forth thing, trying to get, especially like Frontier Village is one of them. A lot of them, they have their house and they're renting the land from the person that owns the land. I have to go after the landowner, and they have to put everything in compliance, and they're all a mess. And then also you have the one behind the Maverick where they were pulling all the trailers out, and then we came across a problem because nobody had any paperwork on who owned those trailers, because they had been passed on to so many people and they were old. And then how do you get rid of it? Because it's not like an RV or a vehicle, because a vehicle can go to the junkyard and they could sit there and it could be possessed by impound. It could be impounded. You can't do that with a manufactured house because it's a house, so it's real estate. So it was a big issue with trying to get it cleaned up. Like the compliance part of it was a headache.
And How do
And I
you,
was like-
how do you issue a citation when you can't find the owner?
Well, you have to do the landowner.
And
So
you
the landowner is responsible, and he's trying to fix it, but he can't fix it because he doesn't know who it belongs to, and so it becomes this big vicious cycle. How do you get rid of this thing that he's responsible for, but he can't get rid of? So it's like a really hard place it's between a rock and a hard spot,
Yeah.
is what it ended up being. I was like, wow, this is gonna be a big issue. Not only that, but none of them are set up right. None of them, if you look at C1A and you look at how they're supposed to be set up, we have, and you drive out and you compare what it's supposed to be on paper on our ordinance, and you compare to what you see on the land. None of them meet up to the requirements, and all of them, I can say, all of them have code violation issues. And so I'm constantly having to like take care of that, and it'd be easier if the landowner had a landowner and you didn't have that. So that was kind of the reason we're like, well, this is real messy, so can we get rid of it? And that was the solution. And so they would continue to exist. So the grandfather clause would be the case of that. And a lot of these manufactured home communities already have mobile homes in them that are old.
Old.
So if you drive them and you drive around, you'll see that they're all really old trailers. I have,
Some of them are
pictures
pretty
in here.
decrepit too.
yeah. And so the manufactured community part of the next slide shows, that this is how they're supposed to be regulated by our ordinance. The box shows you how they're supposed to be. So they're supposed to, the space width, the depth of the space, how everything's supposed to be set up. That's taken out of our ordinance. That's how it's supposed to be.
But how does the code enforcement officer even enforce this?
So if it's already grandfathered in, we have to allow it to exist, okay? And if the property becomes dilapidated, then we request for that to be removed. Or, because,
'Cause
Yeah.
some towns had eyesore regulations, you
Yeah.
can start issuing citations.
Well, Matt, actually, we kind of sort of, so when they pull one out, we don't let them pull
Don't
one
let them
back.
put one in, yeah.
So we're weeding them out because there's some that are just, I mean, they are just completely falling apart, and
Yeah.
the property owner is being cited.
Mhm.
They decide to pull it out, but we don't let them bring another one in.
So in 99 years, we'll be okay.
Oh, no.
It's gonna take a long time to clean it up, but at the same time, if we take C1A and we don't allow it anymore, we can focus on what we have to deal with. And allowing to have more problems in the future, like, can we isolate the problem and work with it so that eventually it'll be cleaned up? Or do
Isolate.
we want it to continue, and then we're just gonna, in 100 years from now, be like, why didn't we just not allow that? I don't know, it's
So we're
gonna,
isolating and
Isolate and minimize, okay,
Yeah.
yep.
and we can't tell them they can't have what they have. We have to allow it to, it'd be grandfathered in. We just won't let it to continue, so they can't make it, they'd have to do what LaSoya did. And
Make it legal.
Okay.
make it legal.
Yeah.
And that there's more of the code, or the ordinance regulations. On the next page, it's just stuff out of our ordinance, and that's just the current regulations for this. And I have striked it all out of our zone, when I did our general zoning regulations, that's the biggest deleting the. Like I removed out of the whole ordinance, was just taking out the manufactured housing communities.
Yeah, you cleaned it up a lot.
But like I said, it's just a suggestion, it's up to you guys. I did add pictures of what code enforcement deals with, these are literal pictures that we deal with in our town that we live in. So, yeah.
People live in these now, yeah.
And I get it, we want affordable housing, but at what extent do we want affordable housing? Do we want it to be so that, like, a standard there? I mean, we can only do so much, I know, but for code enforcement, this is a big headache. It's a big headache. And then so then also people move in and out and their trash left behind, it's a big mess. And so you can just go through each one.
Yeah, I saw that one the other day.
Um,
You took these pictures fairly recently.
Yeah, I try to get them as close to them as we possibly could. And you can see that they're falling apart. Nobody's maintaining them. It's just, it'd be nice to. And so the zoning part of it, and this was the idea concept, because we're both I mean, you and I know, I don't know about anybody else in this room, but I like the small housing concept just because a lot of people, New York, California, Washington State, Colorado, all of the places around, I know we're not even close to as big as far as like minutes, like people living there, but a lot of those type of people are moving here, okay? You get a lot of people coming from those areas.
It might just be coming part-time too, that's fine.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like the small housing is a really cool thing, and so it'd be nice to be able to see that in the manufactured communities. Open up to more of the small housing communities, so you could have small houses, which would be tiny houses, which would be the ones that are on wheels. That you would put them in, instead of having manufactured homes in there. Like, we would still offer affordable housing, the affordable housing concept would still be there. And then I don't know how many more of these pictures I have, I've had a few of these pictures too, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm at the C1A and C2A dissolved into one district, so. There you go.
So the proposal that Laxton had brought in and that we were dealing with was C1 and C1A and C2A. To dissolve them into one district, so it'd be taking the purple and the yellow on the map and putting together into one.
That's an ugly color, but yeah.
Well, they're complementary, so turn brown.
Okay.
But the main reason behind it was because it didn't make any sense to have first of all, there's not a lot of them. There's not a lot of yellow and there's not a lot of purple. And I think what they were doing was making a subsection for C1 and C2. But the idea and the options for them were the same. So like, you're not losing anything. Everything is still allowable in both. We're just cleaning up our zoning map so that we don't have as many colors and we just have, it's just cohesive. And not only that, the C2A was never codified. So we haven't really even used it that much because I just recently figured out what was allowable and what was not allowable. And it's this identical to C1A. So we're not losing anything. We're marrying them together. We want to make them a couple. It's pretty much what we want to do. Yeah.
It made sense. I did have one question, why taxidermy was still allowed. It was still on there, so we'll talk about that.
Okay, I don't remember that part. And then so the next one is the RV parks encouraged with camping in tiny houses. I do get people that ask if we can put in campgrounds and stuff like that on a regular basis. I don't know so much about that, but if they were allowable in RV parks, I don't think it'd be an issue, like Lost Alaska or something like that, but to encourage more of the affordable housing that makes sense for this area. And RVs and tiny houses are considered RVs, so if they get abandoned or dilapidated, they could be removed and impounded, and they can be they get out of the way. We don't have to deal with them, and that's like the main thing for our department, like it'd be easier to deal with. That's a small house, right?
That's from Amazon, $10,000, 2 containers.
So that'd go in the R4.
So would go in R4.
Right.
Yeah.
'Cause, all
Yeah.
the type instruction.
Yeah, so the next picture is showing you that what tiny homes are. I didn't want people to get confused on what we were gonna allow in the R4. So tiny homes are considered RVs. They would only be allowed in RV parks. Okay, they would only be allowed in the C1A or C2A as they exist right now, the purple and yellow.
Okay, you lost me. Why, this is not a tiny home?
And it's not on wheels.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
but that's a tiny home.
So tiny homes are only on wheels.
They're considered RVs by
definition.
code.
Okay,
That would be one of the smaller
That'd
houses
be a
on, in
casita.
R4,
but if you took it off the wheels and put it on a foundation,
then it's.
It would have to
different.
meet the requirements of that.
And a tiny home wouldn't meet the requirement.
It'd have to be
Oh.
500 square feet or more.
Tiny homes are 400 and under or
Mhm.
something,
Yeah.
there's a,
And they sit on the wheels, so it's different. And that's why I didn't want you guys to get confused about what we were trying to open up in R4. We don't wanna see a whole bunch of little RVs parked in lots.
but
right,
if
They
we
have to
did
be
have,
houses, they have to be real estate that go in an R4.
if there was a C1A that wanted to open a tiny house. Little mobile park,
park,
Like
Would
the
be
one
great.
over by
Yeah.
Phytex,
uh-huh,
that's like a little tiny house community.
yep,
They
yeah,
have
right
like 3 or
behind
4
it,
back there,
uh-huh,
yeah, over there by the La Loma or whatever,
uh-huh.
and it's outside city limits, but that,
and they have the container
containers,
house,
yeah.
yeah. And then there's the next picture shows what a tiny home looks like on wheels.
Hmm.
Like that's, somebody actually submitted these drawings because they wanted to put one on a lot, and I was like, that's perfect, I can use one of those. Because it says up here in the certification and standards, this tiny home on wheels is designated to meet the model RV standards. So a tiny home is considered an RV by standards.
and if it also met HUD standards? Or
The-
can it meet HUD
I
standards?
don't think so.
Okay,
An RV you can transport across the United States a number of times. These you cannot. They'll start falling apart. on you.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially with what is it, the do-it-yourselfers. A lot of people in my age group especially are building those and living in them, cause it's affordable housing, especially.
No, I got you.
yeah, there's one I saw online the other day, it looked like a container. And it came in our truck and they set it on the foundation, and then you unfolded it. Into like a 600 square foot home.
Mhm. Yeah,
There's
so
some sort of kit.
the main points of the zoning updates were just mainly, that the R4 is not gonna change, we just wanna change the name. And we wanna add to it, so we wanna change the name and we wanna add small houses to it. That's the main thing that our department, our vision was for the ordinance update. Was don't change it, leave it the way it is, but add to it. And that, and then do you guys understand the difference between a mobile home and a manufactured home? And that, okay,
And HUD and all that stuff,
Mhm.
yeah, and, I think that's
and you guys
Definitely where
understand what a modular.
where you
home
want to
is?
go, yep. And the modular is a one-time, you bring it in, you set it up,
It's a house, yeah.
it's a house,
Okay, do you guys have any questions for me?
so, probably, now we'll
Not
start.
on there yet.
So let me
It's
see,
a modular is a little bit more than that. It's got better engineered HVAC system. It's got 2x8.
They're built very well, yeah, actually,
They're built
Fact,
better
they're
than
so
most.
heavy.
most houses, yeah,
Hard to haul around.
yeah.
I mean, the trucks, they blow out tires left and right.
that question you already answered.
Did you have any questions, Rick?
And I do think it makes sense that we do.
So, yep,
Yeah.
See, somebody's put it back together. And then having the definitions so people can truly understand it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, strategy.
I submitted the draft. There was a couple definitions that Megan had requested to add in that were not in there. But on my side, I think most of it's ready. You'd have to ask Megan, she's the one that's acting as.
So, based off of the last city council workshop with zoning and the questions that you guys had, we scheduled this workshop, if we need to make any additional updates to the ordinance, we can make them, and then we would present the council following the standard. 2 weeks to the attorney.
In the definitions, I had two questions.
Sure.
There's no definition for junkyard, and we have we have junkyards in town.
That'd be considered accumulation junk and debris, and that would be in code enforcement. It wouldn't even
But
be,
it wouldn't be a
we
definition.
wouldn't even
here.
offer that definition because we don't
Okay.
want,
Yeah, we wouldn't even put that in the box.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
we don't want that in there.
We don't want eyesore in there either.
We don't want somebody to-
Yeah, no, thank you.
So we actually have junkyards.
Yeah, yeah, they're definitely on my list. Well, some of them, I mean, there's some of them you can't see because they're behind fences,
Yeah,
but
some of them are.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, let me see.
So where we at right now?
they're good. You're
You're
on the.
going through Matt's question.
Going through my questions, unless you want to go first.
No, I'm just trying to figure where you're
Okay,
at.
now I'm.
He
that's
doesn't know.
exactly what I'm trying to do. We've already answered those questions, so I'm going page by page. Um, and this is in section 20 of
That's
page
number
58 and 59.
Of the ordinance.
And especially on I'm sorry, page 32 and 33
Okay.
Of the ordinance.
of the ordinances, yeah.
Okay.
And on page 32, it says conditional use permit application shall be submitted to the administrative official as provided and so on, city council. And then it says planning and zoning have the authority to impose conditions.
Yes.
In Alpine, does planning and zoning have the authority to do that without city council?
So impose your conditions would be like suggestions, right?
Right.
Yeah. So like, if you wanted to see it landscaped a certain way, or if you wanted a barrier around it, like you'd say, you could suggest those things, like.
Right, but so the way that it's written, it says have the authority to impose conditions. So I think it needs to be with,
Have the ability to recommend.
there you go, yep. 'Cause I don't-
What number are we on?
We are on
Section
section
page.
20, page 32.
32 of 210.
Number 2?
Yeah, page numbering is kind of.
Page numbering on the bottom, page 32 is of 210.
And then it's,
Far right hand corner of the bottom.
And in the past, planning and zoning has put conditions in place for things that are outside the normal zoning.
Right.
For example, we had someone actually living in an RV within the city limits, which is not in the zone it should be in. For health, medical reasons of that loved one. And basically planning and zoning said, we're gonna allow it, but as soon as that person passes away, you have to remove it. And we did
Yeah,
do
but
that.
so it is a good thing possibly,
Sometimes, yes.
if you,
I think this was copied from the booklets.
I still
But
don't know.
to make it applicable for Alpine, it has to be
Do you have the
recommendation
packet?
because we don't actually
section
have.
20.
Jessica, do you have the packet?
No, I have my ordinance.
Yeah, I did.
thing.
Oh,
Or-
section
We don't-
20, conditional use permit.
That answers that.
So that's why I'm talking about that. Maybe on yours, it's page 28. We got section 19, section 20.
She just needs to find you.
Conditional use permit.
Oh, I think it's here. There it is.
Okay, down there on the
We just
bottom.
Need to change that to have the ability to make recommendations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we can't go out and put our gun on and go, hey, I'm enforcing the law here and you're
Good catch.
Get in line.
gotta call Rick for that.
Will become part of building standards.
Yep. Okay, so that was a question that I had. Now. Okay, you already answered that one. My house is in R1 and it doesn't meet the it doesn't meet the size requirements, but
The grandfather did.
I hope so, otherwise I have to,
Every time the zoning ordinance changes, we are
I got
gonna
it.
have those who don't.
okay.
You're in R2, Matt.
I mean, R2, yeah, but still my house is less than 1,000 square feet, because I measured it. And it's 960 square feet, if I count the porch. Which
You don't
I
count
added-
the
I added on. Okay, okay, I think you answered my questions on the Connex casitas. We're okay with those? The container ones? So, let's see. Oh, yeah, on your page 48. Where on us, it's page 52 of 120, the C1 commercial district. Taxidermy was listed on.
It was added in there because It was not in there at all. It was added. If it's highlighted, it's been added.
You don't want that there?
And I thought we said because of the chemicals involved in taxidermy, we were not gonna have those in residential areas, or.
This is
This is
commercial.
commercial.
It's commercial, oh, yeah, okay, never mind.
Yeah. It was added into
Steve, what-
commercial, 'cause it was not classified anywhere else.
Okay, all right, okay, gotcha. Now,
If you're on that page he is on,
okay,
just real quick, where it says taxidermy, if you go down to the star there, the
Mhm.
asterisk. Look at the 7 a.m. nor 12 p.m. I don't know if we need to fix something there, the grammar and or how it's worded.
catch up.
Yeah, it needs to be, yeah. Some words got left out or something.
I just was taking advantage, Matt, of them being.
Like
Yeah, yeah,
location.
yeah, sorry, yeah.
I'm not sure, is that what it's?
Where it says
meaning?
nor,
And then look at AM right before that, where it's a
oh, it's messed up.
comma M.
So this needs to be,
What page is that, Lisa?
Or after
48.
12 p.m.
What do you?
Yeah, it's kind of
I don't
confusing.
think it should be 12 p.m. It should probably be 12 a.m.
Yep.
'Cause, man, we gotta shut down everyone at lunch.
I know, it's like,
I read this a couple years ago and it's always bugged me, like, I don't know why this is in here.
I missed that, that's cool. Yep.
Yeah.
what else you got highlighted over there?
Actually, can we put midnight instead of?
Yeah, we can put
Because that's a little.
That's more-
Midnight,
yeah.
yeah.
8 a.m. PM. Oh,
How about 00 hours?
Go Zulu time for everything.
Okay,
Oh,
Matt,
wait,
sorry.
These
Okay,
these
no, no,
things are
that
out
was
of,
good, that was good.
these things are out of the 1700s.
That was good. Okay.
AM,
now, let's see
PM,
if I had
midnight.
Another question.
Yeah.
I'm on page 100 now, but I'm trying to figure out what my question was.
Okay.
Okay, where it says home occupation. Who measures that? Like home occupation shall not exceed 15% of the floor area? That kind of stuff?
So a home occupation would be a special use conditional use permit, so you'd have an inspection before.
So do we have somebody that goes and inspects that, or that's only when it's
We
being
don't,
built,
we've
right?
never regulated, we've never regulated home occupations.
Okay, okay,
That is something that has been kind of tucked under the cover somewhere and nobody's ever. It actually became a problem because of a scenario that happened.
Bakery,
Was it the,
was it the bakery? Okay,
bakery.
And now there's a clear ordinance within there, it's all being better defined.
yeah, we edited that.
And it
one
would be
based off of
easy
the
for them to
code.
come up with the percentage if they had.
The
full
percentage
time.
we took directly out of our book.
Okay.
Like the whole specs came out directly out of our book.
inventory and supplies shall not occupy more than 50% and all that kind of stuff, that seemed like,
We have a big
You know,
problem.
um. Stuff that we couldn't enforce probably.
They should be able to provide a plan when they apply for the special use
Yeah.
permit with like
Yeah,
a
It
drawing
would
and.
be like a short-term rental thing where they would submit it like their, like their fire escape plan, it'd be like their bird's eye view, like,
Right.
we've never really ever regulated them. And I don't know how I would do that
I would
solely
do
by
that,
myself anyways, but I could. I mean, at this point, we need council to make a decision on the edits anyway, so it's not really that pressing. But once they make the decision, then code enforcement can start writing letters to everybody that we know that has a business that they're operating as a home occupation. There's a lot of them
Yeah,
that they'd need permits for and they'd need to be able to do it correctly.
You answered that one. This question,
Is that in this?
Okay. this is on
Is it the
your
definition?
page. Our page 116 of 210. Your page 2459. What does it mean, quasi-public? Which is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs down. Page 116. And if, since we have it in there, that definition. doesn't
It'd be
seem
like a
very-
birthday party?
I don't know.
What?
I mean, it's under definitions and it doesn't. really-
Yeah, it came out of our ordinance, or it came out of the,
It says,
The
it doesn't
code book?
say if it's temporary, doesn't say
How's this spelled?
Quasi?
quasi-public.
CU?
I don't know where we're at. on
So we're on page one
it.
sixteen,
Yeah, my pages don't work like that though. What's the?
on
her
the
number?
right-hand side, right-hand side.
24 out of 59?
The page,
Okay.
page numbers on the right-hand side, on your page number 2459. The middle.
Yeah, I got, okay, there we go.
And then going down
Essentially, a
that page,
public use although under private ownership or control, so that's like if, let's say. Let's say somebody wanted to do where the farmer's market used to be, maybe? It's
Yeah, I
Private
was thinking that.
ownership, but the
just-
public's using it,
Yeah, I would say that. It'd be a good example.
or the building that burned down, if he cleared it off and kept ownership. And we made it like a public,
because up there, like public utility station. A structure or facility used by the public or the quasi-public. Utility agency.
Mhm.
So I just didn't, I don't.
it's kind
understand.
of a
I
weird.
just want to say I didn't understand quasi-public.
You should put that in Google
I
search
think
and,
that it's referring to like maybe a water district or something like that, that it's quasi-public, but like our gas company used to be owned privately, but it was quasi-public because it's provided
Ah,
service to the
okay.
public. So I think that's what it's referring to, because it even says in that part, you mentioned quasi-public utility agency, so that's what leads me to believe.
for the public utility. Yeah, you guys have a good evening, thanks for coming.
You'll be hearing from us.
Welcome aboard. Remember, the ocean sailor who couldn't get around the world.
So that, and a lot of the, roads in the rural counties, particularly here, they use the term public-private.
Mhm. Same concept.
Okay, well, that ends that for me. I don't know if you. Jessica?
Yeah,
Contradiction of terms, public.
Lisa, do you have some questions?
question on, I'll go off of the page, does it work for you being on the page
I'll figure it out.
3 of 59?
I'm adaptable.
Do you have, do you have 3 of 59?
Yeah.
Set at the center number.
Yeah, yep, just because we have two sets of this
Okay.
other packet.
Yeah.
Vacancy and damage.
Mhm.
I'm not exactly sure what this comes into, but I was looking into the 6-month term
Mhm.
that we have in here. So
Mhm.
that's how long an owner can leave.
So it's for a non-conforming use of land,
Yep,
a structure, a non-conforming structure, or a non-conforming use of structures on premise.
yep.
So it's pretty much under the non-conformity.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they're able to leave that property for up to 6 months? And then what happens?
No, it's discontinuance happens if it's been left for 6 months. So it can no longer be considered, okay, I'll give you an example. So non-conforming would be like, like a mobile home that's considered non-conforming because it was before HUD standards, right?
Uh-huh.
They moved out or was vacant for 6 months and AEP pulls the meter off of it,
Okay,
okay?
then it's gotta
It's
go.
done, yeah,
Okay,
because
if-
there's nothing they can do to bring it up to code after that.
okay, so 6 months is fair then, cause I think you could go up
That's
to
straight
2
out of the,
years.
that's straight out of the.
Okay,
book
cause I
that
know
we use.
some places go up to 2 years,
Yeah.
but but
Anything
that makes
that-
more sense how
yeah.
you explain it,
Well,
okay.
Lisa, it also helps with when we have to go before standards and building.
Oh,
standards.
yeah,
If, so she would have already had all of her case, she would have had her document, the 6 months is gone, they've already done their
Okay.
presentation. So it automatically can go to standard, building standards, and they can condemn it, we can.
make quicker action, okay, so the 6 months is
You correct
good,
me if I'm wrong, Jessica, but that would help with that side of the process.
But it doesn't apply to that house like up past Ned's. It's
okay,
all
boarded,
boarded up. Nobody's been there for 2 years, but
yeah,
that's some, that.
Yeah, that would be
it's a
considered,
house.
yeah.
It's conforming, I guess, but.
Would the number 2, the damage, can we go to number 2?
On what
Yep.
page?
Would the damage be, that one and number 2, would that be like the center of town's burned down?
Yeah, that would be a good example, that it's more than 50% of it, but that's not considered a non-conforming structure. So I'll give you an example of a non-conforming.
Because
We're gonna go
the
back to
structure's gone.
Yeah, the structure's gone, and not only that, but the structure that was there was conforming to that zone, so like it fit. A non-conforming structure would be something that doesn't belong in that zone. So let's use Matt Walter's property, for example, it catches fire and he realizes that it's gonna cost more than 50% of its value, then he would have to rebuild to the standard set in our ordinance, he'd have to build a house to 1,000 square feet to meet the requirement.
okay,
Does that make sense?
yep, so that's standard in your code though,
Yes.
okay. A lot of places we have the 2 parking spot, this is just kind of
It's
throughout.
just off of our zone. It's out of the ICC recommendations for residential.
And that's what
zones.
we wanna do in Alpine is require people to have the
It's just
2.
a suggestion based off of, I mean, it wouldn't if we didn't match it to this, then it wouldn't match our.
Okay,
We'd have to do an exemption
Okay.
to our,
not worth it. Okay,
but it's for any new house, so any new house that's built would have to meet that requirement, they'd have to get at least 2 parking spots.
okay. A question on the definition of kiosk, page 21.
I don't know if we're ever gonna see one of those in Alpine.
Well, what are you intending with
We
it?
might.
Is that like a farm stand? Like,
I-
I picture in like Washington, we have these cool little booths all over in neighborhoods. Where people are able to low volume, no
Help me out, where
employees
you
have
at?
a kiosk.
Where you
Page
at again?
21 of 59 under definitions,
Which one?
Page
kiosk.
Kiosk, okay.
Yeah.
So,
You know what I mean? Like, and it's a permit thing with the city, you get a permit and you have a little,
so one of the concepts that's been brought up, like on our tourism side, is a kiosk in the park that has all of the information for sites to visit in Alpine. So it'd basically be a little structure that people could walk in, they can get pamphlets and
Mhm.
flyers and.
like you see in
information.
Marathon and
Like you see in
Tulinga.
Marathon, it's kind of the same thing. The other kiosk that has been thrown around that, I mean, I'm not ready to move forward with, but like a payment,
Okay.
where, so instead of having all of our payments one place, they could go to a little kiosk somewhere else and make payments. There's a vendor who's pushing for it, but obviously I wouldn't put a payment thing in the middle of the city.
Like bike rentals, you can have a kiosk for
Yeah,
a bike rental.
rentals.
So there's
That could be
nothing
something
that
we could
would
see in the
be.
near future, cause they're trying to do bike lanes and open that up to like more of a
Uh-huh.
biker friendly area, so
Yep.
like, you know, the rent a bike thing is, I don't know if it's as popular anymore, I think they found some major errors in that, but. I mean, it's possible that
Yep.
somebody wanted to put something like that, could be a
Electric
kiosk.
scooters wanted to come
Yeah,
a
I
lot
remember that,
more.
yeah.
Unfortunately, there are problems with it, especially when people just randomly.
Leave them, yeah.
Okay, so it wouldn't be anything kind of like,
I mean, it'd be rare, I mean, it would come up, but it'd be one of those things, it'd have to be a special use, conditional use permit, it'd have to go through the whole thing, it'd
Yeah.
have to have a place to be located, it
Yeah.
wouldn't be, I mean, it'd be a whole process
Okay.
anyway.
okay,
Or they'd have to get a variance of some sort, like, it's not something that we're gonna see, I think, pop up on a regular basis, but if it had, it'd have to come through you guys and through city
But it
council.
would be
anyway.
permitted.
It'd have to be, yeah.
Is there anything we would wanna ever add in the residential? I feel like we're losing part, I don't see stuff in our ordinances for arts and culture. And I know a lot of cities do have arts and culture, they're trying to bring it, we're not big enough to have like an art and culture zone.
Yeah.
But is there a way where you can do like, creative community, studio viewing, something within the residential zones where people can
Open up their own
include
studio.
arts, like not sell, not like low volume,
I think that it would still fall under the home business.
Yeah, I would,
even if it doesn't sell anything. Like it's not like a sell thing, it's more of just bringing that, I'm just picturing, trying to picture ways to bring people.
Almost like an.
I'll
open
give you an
house.
example, are you thinking more like when Christmas happens, the holidays, and they drive around, they look at the lights?
Maybe so, yeah,
But
something
they're
like
they
that.
Drive around, they look at
Historic-
people's
But
art.
this would be, you could stop at somebody's gallery, or
Historic
if they're,
funeral home,
if you're
that, yeah.
doing
Kinda-
lapidary
Martha's
work.
Kinda like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't have any opening, and I hate to like not try to include something in these, since they probably won't be revised for. a
So
long
that
time.
would be something that would technically be zoned.
But it
No, I mean,
should
I
be-
see it in-
should
I
be
know
a
that's-
definition.
In signing,
definition.
like in signs, murals and things like that are not you don't need a
Okay.
permit for it,
So
right?
we could in the community,
You can have
do
your own
s-
murals, yeah.
but
and-
we could do a community like studio viewing, a community-wide, something where people could have.
I think if someone wanted to open up their home, I don't think we would regulate.
Okay.
That you couldn't open.
No, that's good
Yeah,
to
we've
know.
been, I'm on the Alpine Historical Association and we have that historic tour of home
Yeah.
once a year, sometimes twice a
I
year.
just think it would be good to somehow get people more arts, more tourism to see
I think it'd be
arts.
more of a private
Yeah,
thing, but there's nothing, like, if I had a piece of property and I had a wall,
Mm-hmm,
like a CMU, a brick wall.
mm-hmm,
And I wanted somebody to put a mural on it, there's
Mhm.
nothing stopping me from allowing that,
Yeah.
like, if you came to my office and said I want to put a mural.
but
on
people
my
could
wall,
stop by and come and look at it if they're
Take
doing,
pictures or-
yeah,
Yeah,
so
and
the city
there's
won't
nothing
regulate.
permitting you, or there's no permits needed and nobody regulates it.
Okay,
Unless it was like offensive, but
yeah, Yeah.
even then, I think that there's two bunnies over on Peach Chief Circle that some might find offensive, but
yeah,
it's considered art to some, so I don't.
yeah, so art is,
I can't tell you, I'm not in there, but it's not a building thing.
There
I,
is one section that needs to be discussed that hasn't been brought up, and I had tasked Gio with, putting together an alcohol ordinance, especially as we go through the permitting process a lot with alcohol permits, whether it's selling, obtaining. And I know Gio had mentioned it, it may be a discussion that you guys need to consider having it in specific zones. I know that's really hard because we do have currently facilities, you know, like the VFW that sits right in the middle of a residential zone. But for future use, alcohol would be regulated to maybe just commercial or commercial in R4s. Really just, I guess, depends on what's allowable in those zones.
VFW is a rare case because it's non-conforming. So if they were ever to sell that building, they could never put a bar there again. It's not zoned.
But we'd have to wait for them to do that.
Yeah.
So we've got like all these or businesses coming before for permits. We are very lucky right now that about 90% of them are within the commercial. But I think it needs to be something we consider now so that we can pass the alcohol ordinance as well. That kind of streamlines the permitting process because we are required by state law to go through that process fairly fast. Which is why we had to call a meeting in December.
But no quorum.
Yeah, but this would help with basically, okay, it meets the check boxes, okay, it's in the right zone, it, you know, they've got the paperwork. And we're not going through the process of having to take it to planning, and then having to take it to council.
Right.
The check boxes have already been established through our ordinances, Gio can just check those boxes, sign off, and then can record. If it doesn't meet the check boxes, then we go that route with the someone wanting to have that conversation.
And have you already written a sample of that out?
So he has a sample of the alcohol ordinance, it just doesn't correlate obviously with zoning. I kind of want to marry the two together like we've been doing. Trying to get the sign ordinance, the alcohol ordinance, get them all in line so we can do them all at one time. And that way, kind of like I said, it will streamline the process, it will help with, you know, making sure we meet the state deadlines. And then you're not updating one and having to go update the other, they're all together. So he was really gracious enough to get that done, so we could actually start moving forward with the other.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I'm good for now.
Yeah, all my other stuff had to do with the meeting, which we can't
But-
have, so,
Yeah, that's kind of what I was focused on, but
so.
more.
Are you
Oh,
guys
oh.
comfortable if we put the alcohol, within just the zones that allow for that type of business?
I think
Yes,
so.
Yes.
Yeah,
You mean like just commercial?
I think it's R4, is it R4 allow?
No, it was commercial,
Just
C1A and C2A, I want to say, something like that.
What about M? Would M allow it? I'm just
Well,
curious,
you know,
cause there's that
actually,
weird,
our current ordinance under the M1 industrial district requires, I want to say, the special use product.
oh,
Sorry.
Special use.
Okay.
permit, for a tavern, and that's already in there, but I mean, that can be updated as well when y'all do your edits. If you don't think that, I mean, I think it's an appropriate.
uh-huh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to make sure if we.
Yep.
wanna
But the way that it's currently written, remember y'all, you might not have been on the board yet, but they just recently, the Planning and Zoning Commission had recommended that whole division. And that was a requirement in there, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you can put anything in C1 and C2 in a C1A. Right? So you would put it under, like, you can put anything in a C1A or C2A into C1. Like. So if you changed it to bars, taverns and whatever, just change it to alcohol sales?
Well,
Okay.
okay, so really quickly before I get there, M1 industrial district, industrial district, it says principal permitted uses. Building structures and lands shall be used, and this is on page 56, by the way, of 59. hereinafter be erected, altered, or enlarged only for the following uses, and it says C1 neighborhood commercial district, C2 business
Okay,
district.
so you'd be
So I
able
think it would
to.
already, yeah.
Mhm,
Yep.
okay,
Well, we do want to make sure that that provision about the special use permit is removed if it's in there. I could have sworn it was. Under taverns in
breweries and
in
distilleries.
M1.
I don't,
Do you see in there tavern and
I didn't think
distillery?
there was
I see
anything.
brewery and distillery on the next page, 57.
The breweries and distilleries up towards the top, but I don't. see
I would
that.
love to get breweries and distilleries
That's
there.
we're only for distilleries and breweries, those are for actual processing.
Okay,
Alcohol.
okay, good. So then that would be fine.
Oh,
And then
I
your
said
question
next
was
page.
what?
That was M1.
Oh,
Oh,
mine's
the
all
C.
messed up.
That if you changed it, instead of having, if you use the words. In. C1. And C2. As. As alcohol sales rather than what it's saying bars and taverns,
Uh-huh.
because a gas station can sell alcohol. So if we did alcohol sales,
So the way that I did it off of Richardson's ordinance, because they had a really good one. And it says sale of alcohol in residential areas and that it's prohibited in any location,
Should it say
Uh,
licensed,
in any residential area.
licensed sales of alcohol?
or just,
It would always have to be licensed under TABC.
Okay,
And then I have sale for off-premise consumption, limited to certain zoning districts, and then I put in there C1, C1A, and C2 business district, and that's. It's just because looking at the map, you have like a lot of gray C2 business district, and I figured that Railroad Blues, for example,
Yeah, you can-
is like in a business district. That's one example.
Mm.
So that's why I added those, and that's how I have it, and I also have sale for on-premise consumption under the same ones, but it's just because right now we're limited to, you know what I mean, like those three zones is kind of what we have going on.
Is
It
that,
really
is that in
covers-
this, is that in this packet right now? Or did I miss that? Okay, all right.
But we can have it in the next one.
No.
like
Well,
maybe-
definitely, and we'll update the alcohol to include M1 for the industrial districts. And then, like I said, that way when they all pass, they're all. Like, when I had them work on it, the idea was, well, zoning will get updated eventually. But then, after reading more of what he had put, being able to specify will help him with the checklist. So they can apply for the permit and they don't have to go through planning and zoning, they don't have to go through council, because the ordinance would allow for those boxes. to be
Okay.
checked.
Be like-
Which
I like-
makes sense,
It's
but
not all cities. do
I like that. Most cities do it that way.
We have strict deadlines, like the state of Texas gives us 30 days to approve it.
Okay.
Once the
Right,
person
yeah.
does that.
okay, yeah, makes sense.
And then only if they don't meet the check boxes, then it can be an automatic denial. Or it can be something that we need to take before planning. and zoning.
Get a waiver, yeah. I like it.
I have a question, you might know the answer, it's digressing a little bit, but. I'm used to the industrial district, call it industrial district, not manufacturing, because to me, manufacturing is underneath industrial. So do you know why they call it manufacturing versus industrial?
I think it's what was already existing.
It's in the code.
I know,
didn't
but what-
change-
I know
We
that.
didn't change the name of it.
No, I know you didn't, I'm just.
So you
wondering-
could recommend that definitely, because we're in the process of it. That's why we are changing R4 from mobile home district to mixed residential.
Well, to me, industrial
That's the idea behind it. Yeah.
carries
So it's-
everything.
See, if
Because
that's.
Because manufacturing doesn't necessarily carry everything, it's industrial.
But M1 is just the.
I mean, it's just a
Is,
kind of stickler there.
yeah, I mean, I guess it could be I1, but it is industrial district.
No, I got that.
Yeah.
I just, that's the
I don't know where the
manufacturing.
M came from. Manufacturing maybe?
That's what it comes from, but to me, manufacturing is
Manufacturing.
under the umbrella of an industrial.
Through industrial district, which we obviously would never have here.
Yeah.
So we really have manufacturing plans or company plans, it's not that full blown
Yeah.
industrial.
It's like the mobile home district, more than a mobile home's allowed there. We've been calling it mobile home district forever, so most people are like, I can only put a mobile home there, I'm like, no, you can put a lot of things there. So it's like kind of, I think that's kind of around the same concept that you're thinking, like, it's, when you think manufactured district, you think it's only. specific.
Manufacturing.
Yeah,
It says that the manufacturing zone intended for limited manufacturing and limited industrial uses. It's a combo.
Yes.
yeah, it's a combo.
Yeah.
So I pulled the M
M1
and the
industrial.
industrial.
I know, but I'm just saying manufacturing is a subset of kind of industrial, because the railroad's industrial.
Yeah.
You know, And you don't have a
And that's
railroad.
mainly the only place that we have M1 or the industrial district is along the railroad.
I know, yeah.
Make it MI. Michigan.
Or I1.
I just wondered, I don't have a big pet peeve, but
No, it's
curious.
So
good terminology.
what's the next step then with this packet?
You do not have quorum, so I know at the last meeting, we didn't have a quorum. I recommended that you open the meeting and then just close it, for record purposes.
Okay.
Is that okay to you?
Yeah, and then as far as next steps, Jessica will make the edits to the ordinance, right? And then it's gonna be an action item next time, I believe, right?
We can have it, we'll do a discussion and action. That way, if there's anything we need to further, but we'll try to get everything to you sooner, and at the same time, we give it to council. So that if council has any questions, since it's been a dual workshop between the two.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
And we can come see you,
What
Jessica,
color
if
is
you have
that?
questions.
Yeah, I'm available all the time. You can email me or come into the office either,
Okay.
Just have a comment.
or call.
okay.
Is there any kind of a effort to get any more board members?
Yes.
Okay, somebody help me. What is that effort?
We have one scheduled for approval on February 4th, and then that would leave us with one vacancy.
Oh, good, okay.
And there's gonna be a new council member in that seat in May, so it would be the prerogative to get somebody in there.
So,
We brought up at the city council meetings for the council members, to be aware of what their open boards are, their positions. And I know Gio has, sent out some emails as well.
okay,
The council does make that.
cool, all right.
Ready? The time is 6:40. Call to order Alpine City Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, January 27th, 2025. Are there any public comments?
We can,
You can't, you're
Oh.
a quorum.
City Secretary, do we have a quorum?
No, we do not.
Is adjourned.
There you go.